All right, welcome to the Gateway API meeting for March 2nd, 2026, otherwise known as KubeCon month. Hurrah!
Yeah,
KubeCon is in a
3 weeks.
short handful of weeks, I guess. Three and a
Yep.
half. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Three, really. Yeah. Oh
Three,
man.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ego in
Wow.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah, so reminder, this is a Kubernetes community meeting. So please be nice to each other. Please follow code of conduct. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, this is such a small group. Anyone can just say anything probably, but if you don't mind raising your hand so we make sure we get to you, that'd be great. But also, it's a small group today, so it's no big deal. Um, yeah, let's talk a little bit about this conformance fix. I think the big question is, do we think we're going to find any more bugs in this release that we could bundle
I
into
think
a 151, or do we
I think
just
it's
cut it?
certainly worth waiting a week or two. I think that it's worth waiting a little while to see if we do have an issue that
There,
we don't have the multiple releases.
there is one
The
in course already as well.
Is, is there? Okay. What's the cause
Yeah,
one?
there is one return. Yeah, that's a return code where we say that we
Oh,
expect code 200 or 204, but we just test for
yeah.
the 200.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, so that's two. So yeah, I think it's worth waiting like a week or so. It's fine to release a
Yeah, I
patch,
mean,
but
that the thing that's top of my mind is usually we tell folks 30 days from a release, if you get a conformance report in, uh, you'll be included in our release blog post.
mm,
And that applies here as well.
I
But
think I think practically we want the blog post to come out before KubeCon though, or at the week of KubeCon,
I
or do we,
I
or do you want to catch
don't
people
think
after
that's
KubeCon?
I think after is okay. I think I would rather be consistent with the 30-day guidance than just, you know, cut people short here.
Yep,
Um,
I'm fine with that too.
and I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of blog posts pre-KubeCon anyway. So we can be the counter to, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Um, but
yeah,
in
I think
either case,
yeah, we're gonna have a
I
talk. We're
just
gonna maintain a track talk that
yeah.
is gonna go through basically the same things. So yeah, I started work. Katarzyna and I started work on the blog post already. I laid out an outline and then she filled in a bunch of things. So yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we're well on track to having the blog post sorted ahead of time this time. So
I don't like, I know we've mentioned the past couple and we've had decent out. I feel like we should mention it again in Slack, if nowhere else. That we're doing a release blog post. Please get your
yeah,
conformance reports in by X date. Uh,
yeah. For me,
what?
I reran the 1.5 conformance test on Cilium and realized that I had never got around to fixing the 421 thing. And the
Oh,
and the fix that I did for config map doesn't work with the config map test that we have. So like either the test is not testing properly, unlikely, or I made a mistake somewhere, more likely. So yeah, I got some fixes to do yet before I can run
oh man.
do a proper conformance test.
So let's say conformance reports due
Yeah,
for inclusion.
the conformance
I'm
reports are
looking at
due then. They're
we'll say the
actually
Monday
due the
after
week of
KubeCon
KubeCon.
or week of Kube.
Yeah,
I figured like
so
Monday
30
after is a
days.
little.
30 days is actually the yeah.
I think 30 days lands us like on the Saturday for me, or
Yeah, something like
the
that. Yeah.
Saturday after
So
KubeCon.
because it was February. Um,
Yeah.
so I think we'd actually be better to schedule like the week after or something like that for the blog post.
Yeah, so if we say
It's
do
like minimum 30 days,
Monday,
not
March 30th, and that's after KubeCon, blog post scheduled later that week. We'll say approximately. Okay. And so coming back to this,
just later that week. Yeah.
there's since there's another bug, Ricardo, do you have an idea of how long it would take to fix this one?
João is from my team at Red Hat, but he works for HA Proxy Ingress, which is not Red Hat, just on his spare time. He has already some commit for that. I asked him if he can send a PR for that, so me and Damien we can do a quick review and approve and share it.
Okay, so let's just say once this is in, we'll plan to cut release. Hopefully later this week. Something like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. This is I'm gonna forget the that's their GitHub kind of.
Yeah, I guess João has the JR as well. Hold on.
Okay, something like that.
JC Moraes JR, yeah, from Junior, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't think we have anything else that I can remember. Oh, actually, we have one more. It's more on a conformance leak. Someone found some leak on the logs. I guess I have approved that, but it never merged. So
wait, which?
It's one that it's more like a leak that can happen, but a leak in the meaning like just a Go routine leak. This one. Maybe
Oh,
we can, if we want we can. It's not a big deal, to be honest. But I did a review. I think it's a good one to have.
okay, cool. All right. I think that's it. So let's talk about 1.6 real quick. What are the things that we want to include? Who cares about TCP route and UDP route? I know Nick does. At least
I
TCP
do.
route. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so Ricardo and I think are in agreement. Like, so one of the biggest reasons we want to do that is that we want to clear out the standard API group and make sure that there's only standard things in there. But I've had a lot of requests for TCP route and UDP route support in Cilium, and I think that has helped me narrow in on what the use case is. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can't see you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my own.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
I got something going on with my internet connection this morning. The bandwidth is way lower than it should be. I'll have to deal with it after this. So sorry.
Oh, weird.
Australia
No,
latency.
Yeah. All right. So no TCP route and UDP route across.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do one, we may as well do the other one.
So the thing is, TCP route feels easier to test and easier to like. I mean, for me,
No.
I guess all of this just is going to require more conformance tests
No.
and.
So we do have tests for UDP route actually, and we don't have for TCP route. We do have one that uses core DNS.
Oh
actually.
yeah, DNS.
I was looking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So if we want, we can write some tests the same way as core DNS, but I think the one with core DNS right now it's fine. My point and Nick on that, it's like the difference between both of them, it's just the protocol, right? Almost everything, at least starting, is the same. Like the discriminator is like protocol and port.
Yeah, I mean, we could just copy them.
Yeah.
Just
We
pulling this up, like,
what?
why do we have? I understand why we have a list of rules because it's consistent, but why do we allow more than one?
I guess it's a mistake. I guess we were discussing that, and this was a mistake.
Yeah.
TCP route should allow just one route, and I guess we have the same thing on TLS route actually.
Yeah.
That we have just one route, right? And you can have multiple backends, but it's up to you on how you're gonna, do the proxying.
Let's see. So spec has rules min max one. So yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that concerns me more on TCP route, to be honest, it's the port allocation thing, which is a story that we have removed from listener set as well. It's like if we want to do some dynamic port allocation or something like that, I think this is the main problem we need to think, like how we're going to work with that, if we're going to work with that. Like,
yeah, okay. I get the incremental value of TCP route and UDP route, but they've never really excited. It feels like they're kind of half baked at best right now. And there just hasn't been anyone really pushing either one forward. And just, graduating just because they've been stuck. Does not feel great.
We do have some cases from Ingress and Nginx as well that supported that. We do have people asking for that. And I've seen cases from our customers, at least. I've seen some people pushing internally to have those because they don't do TLS route. They don't have SNI termination, TLS termination on the listener, or they do have legacy stuff, but they don't want to create a bunch of load balancers just for this team, because in the end the service just supports one port, right? Actually one port and backend, whether they want to do this sort of combination for IoT stuff as well. So
yeah, sorry, I'm back. I had to dial in on my phone.
Oh, welcome. Oh, nice. Welcome back.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the feedback that I've got is the main thing that people want TCP route to UDP route for is sharing VIPs, sharing load balancer IPs, and it's complicated because it means that you can't just deliver a gate. You can no longer map a gateway one-to-one with a service, a load balancer service. So in order to be able to do it, unless your proxy can do like transparent enough TCP forwarding, which I think for a lot of folks that's what the Ingress Nginx one is that it's transparent enough. It's not proper TCP route, like TCP forwarding, in that it's effectively source net, but for a lot of people, that's enough. They just need the packets to flow. Rob, you're muted.
I'm muted. My question is always like, what does a route give us that isn't just a listener set with backend refs at the listener level, approximately, right? Like,
so the main thing. So there's two things that a route gives us that a listener set with backend refs would do. It keeps the pattern that listeners are for listening and routes are for routing. And secondly, it does allow us to have a place to put protocol specific settings. So for TCP route, once you start doing TCP route stuff, you will need to be able to set like TCP windowing settings and like other sort of low level TCP stuff that you will need to be able to set those things, and you'll need to put them somewhere. And the same for UDP route. There's going to be a bunch of low level UDP stuff that you'll need to be able to set. And that will be the place to put them then. And that's another reason why it makes sense to have the 2 layer 4 routes in separate things, because they do have different behaviors and they do need different settings. So because UDP is connectionless, you'll need to have a bunch of stuff that manages how you can treat it as a pseudo connection, and then for TCP route, as I said, there's all of those settings, and there's keep alive settings and a bunch of other stuff like that. Some of those settings have crossover into backends. So backends also need keep alive settings and some other stuff like that. But But there's definitely a class of things that when you're doing the front end forwarding, there's some stuff that you need to be able to set for the front end. There is an argument to be made that some of the front end stuff would apply to HTTP listeners as well, maybe, but you I'm the more I think about it, the more reluctant I am to just be like, oh, we're just going to let you put a backend ref in a listener, regardless of if it's in a listener set or not, just because we've already got enough sort of special case things and like, oh, but in this case you don't have to do that, and like I'm really worried about like letting us leak consistency by in the name of like hey, it reduces some YAML. Because at the end of the day, that's what the adding the stuff directly does. It is doing the same thing that a TCP route or UDP route will do with less boilerplate and on less objects, which is not bad. It's just that I don't feel like the trade off is worth it.
So, okay, let me go down a rabbit hole because I'm real good at that. I haven't given up on this thing yet. I know it's crazy. But I still would love for something like cluster IP gateways to exist at some point in the not too distant future. And this is, continues to be inspired by Tim's lightning talk from many
Mm-hmm.
KubeCons ago now. And then, what I've seen more recently is, we're getting all these new kinds of backend types. I am part of the problem with inference pool. But you're also seeing these other like AI working group sub projects, whatever, also saying, hey, we should have a backend for this, or we should have a backend for that. And there's some overlap, but they're also like different kinds of backends. Um, and this is all like things that keep on coming back to the idea of if we only had a standard way to represent a backend in Kube, then things could be simpler. And if we did that, then you could presumably get to something where a cluster IP gateway is not a horrifying UX, right? Like, if you have automatic DNS naming, if you have, there's a gateway and like, okay, well, okay, let me just walk through this whole thought process for a second. Sorry for the diversion. I won't spend too long here, but this is what we have today. It gets a little messy for mesh in particular. The thing that we always disliked about the Gamma UX of you have a service sending traffic to a service, like attaching to a service as a parent and as a backend feels funky. If you distinguish between front end and back end, this feels less funky to me. I would say
Mm-hmm.
like attached to a gateway and then split between these sets of backends. Um, and so if you do have an endpoint selector type and that endpoint selector type serves as this kind of foundation for service and all the new backend types, everything, then you could start to support all kinds of other types as well. So you get direct path from. So then, like the next
Yeah.
theoretical thing here is this direct path from gateway to endpoint selector, which I think is most pronounced if we're trying to consider service a gateway, a service type LB, or a service type cluster IP replacement, like
But I
service
think
replacement.
to me, a lot of the thing that is like it's collapsing the things, right? Like so
Yeah.
most of the like I grant that most of the time the person who is managing the gateway, it's okay if they are also the person managing the end, like saying that gateway should do the endpoint selector. Yeah, we do have listener set now. We do have listener set now to help this, but like it's still kind of, again, like it's messing up the model, right? Like we're polluting the model with more ways to do the same thing, right? Like so we're saying like there's not one way to do this, right? Like there's not like you don't have a gateway that then has a route that then has backends. Sometimes you have a gateway that just has backends. What are those times?
Mhm.
Well, like it's a bit complicated, right? Like, and we've already got like too many areas where we're like, well, it's a bit complicated. Like, I just don't want to add more. That's the real thing that I'm really worried about. Like the
I
that's the sort of the high level thing that I'm worried about here, is that there's you. I already have to say, well, it's a bit complicated, way more than I would like, and I'd like not to have to keep doing that.
I would argue that this in our attempts to be consistent with the current UX, we are enforcing complexity across the stack where it's not necessarily needed. That would be my counter, and so like in this case, okay, so let me take you one horrifying step further. Maybe not horrifying, but I'll just go down here. So you have endpoint selector that exists.
Mm-hmm.
You can go all the awful way to this, and if you have this, the gateway controller then creates endpoint selector, and then this becomes very, very similar to service in that it is a single thing. Again, I'm not saying we should do this.
Yeah. But I'm like, even in that case, like, what have we gained, right? Like, what have we gained over the service object here, right? Like,
I think so. I'm focusing.
Like, because we're still going to be able to use this thing for a load balancer or for a cluster IP. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm focusing on service right now because it's cluster IP, whatever. But what I've heard pretty convincingly from Ingress users is that gateway is too complicated, right? And one of the things that would make gateway easier is presumably in some cases you just want to terminate TLS, right? You don't really care about routing. You don't really. This does not necessarily need to be limited to L4 or other layers. I don't know. I have this level of discomfort about adding TCP and UDP route further if they're really not providing any more value than this would. Like, we're adding two new route two existing, but like you get the distinction of
I get it.
We could have like 3 lines of YAML versus we could add 2 new route types, right?
Sure, but then what happens when you need to configure the TCP properties of that connection? Where does that live? Does it live on every listener? Because now we've added that to all the HTTP routes, and like, what happens when we need to configure the UDP properties? Where does that live, right? Like, what happens when people say, oh, I want to be able to mix, TCP route and UDP route and HTTP route all on the same gateway? Is that okay? Why do you have a separate config for HTTP route and not for TCP and not for TCP?
Yeah, no, I mean,
right,
you're
like
right.
That's the.
I mean, we've already kind of crossed this line by including TLS certs and TLS validation on listeners. Like, we've already crossed the line of including a bunch of protocol specific stuff on a listener. We can say that was a bad idea. We shouldn't do it anymore.
But I think that even cases like when you have two parent refs and you want to detach your TCP route from one gateway and attach to the other one because you're doing some sort of migration, I think it's something that you probably want to consider, like having 2 entries for the same route.
Yeah.
So
that was another reason why we split the route concept out to begin with, is so that you can like reuse configuration across gateways. Like, if you can do that with a listener set, sure, but like,
right, but in this case, like, a TCP route is literally just a link to a backend. It's just an object ref or a list of object refs at this point. I get that it will be more.
Gateways.
What's it?
Sorry, you can have two parent refs, right?
Yeah.
And you can attach, and you can have them attached to 2 different gateways. And if you are doing traffic migration between one gateway to the other, then you detach when you are sure that everybody is getting to the TCP port from gateway B, because you needed some gateway with more resource than gateway A or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's I see your point, like on simplifying, Rob. I think maybe one thing that I would probably think, it's like, I agree with Nick. Like, I think the model, at least the model is consistent in the meaning that like you have the routes, and the routes they have some one persona which is different from the gateway admin, which is another persona. Maybe what we need is to think on how to simplify this, this UI, this UX with gateway CTL, or I don't know, because I am also scared on making to making one feature be you've been able to configure one feature on two different ways. I think this one is usually the worst user experience in Kubernetes. Like when people they are starting and they say like, hey, I have all of those ways of doing things. Like I can choose all of those CNIs, I can choose all of those gateway APIs. People already they have to take a lot of decisions to get their Kubernetes cluster up and running. I wouldn't like them to need to decide which approach is the best if they have to.
Yeah, I can't imagine if I'm a user of the service API today, I can't imagine having any reason to move to this API.
So
It
the reason is that Kubernetes services have the invariant that one front end equals one
right.
set of backends, right? Like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so like the thing that Gateway gives you is it lets you violate that invariant. It lets you say you can have one
Yeah.
VIP that points to multiple sets of backends, right? Like that is the reason, right? Like,
Yeah.
and look, if we had endpoint select available today in Kubernetes, I'd be like, okay, let's try it out in experimental. But the fact is, we don't have endpoint selector available in Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Even if it was added in today, we are looking at 2 to 3 years before we can use it in Gateway API.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
No, you're
people
right.
who need TCP and UDP are stuck before until then. So like, I get it. Like, it would be nice to be able to make that a bit easier, but I think to me, like in my mind, it is okay. So there are reasons people want, there's definite use cases that people need this for. That is beats load balancer service. Okay, so that's that sort of concern addressed. Like, I was not sure about that either for a long time. To me, there are cases that beat load balancer service as it exists today. Again, this is about as it exists today, not what we could build. In the case, then we do need places to be able to put protocol specific things. That could be listener for sure. Like the problem with putting on listener is if we put a bunch of TCP settings on listener, they also apply to HTTP listeners and gRPC listeners, and
And
everybody will need to support. Like
that doesn't have to be true, but yes, it could be.
but no, people will want it to be true because there's like
Sure.
you do like it is valuable to be able to configure TCP properties of HTTP connections, right? Like it
Yeah.
is useful. So that is an argument for maybe putting some TCP customization on, like TCP setting customization on the listener. Sure. But then all of these things require us to build something in upstream Kubernetes, which, as we all know, takes even longer than it takes us to do anything. Right. And so, like, if we were to do this, we would need to start today, and it probably would not deliver any outcomes for people who need TCP and UDP for forwarding functionality for 2 to 3 years. Right. Like,
Yeah.
as opposed to we have a TCP route and UDP route standard that we have had sitting there that people really are using already. People are using it already as it stands today. And so, like, we either need to call it and be like, we are never going to push this forward, or we need to push it forward. Like, we need to make a call here and do something about it because it's really not in good service to people to leave it sitting there. And we can't wait 2 to 3 years for us to come up to finish up and polish up this alternative solution. So to me, it is better to push something forward now and then end up with, like, even though I don't like ending up with two ways to do it, but like it's better for me to have a way to address this, a standard, tested, and so on way, than it is to be like, well, maybe we might be able to do something better in a long time. That's sort of where I'm at. Like, I don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that I can give in on this one. I don't have too much in
Yeah, like,
here, too much
like I
invested
think,
here one way or the other.
yeah, I think, like, I would like us to be able to, like, it would have been nice to come up with something that is a bit more elegant than it, but again, to me, like the fact is the people complaining about ingress, like about Gateway API being too complicated are used to the fact that Ingress hid a lot of important details from them, right? Like, and they didn't know they were important until they found out they were important because they screwed them over, right? Like that's why we built Gateway API the way we did, is because there are important details there that it's very easy to miss, that are not important when you are one guy, one developer, like running a thing, but are important once you become, 100 developers trying to run on the same cluster. And like I understand, yes, it is complicated, but it's because it's solving a complicated solution, and front loading the complexity into people needing to understand those things earlier, like it sucks, but it's better for them in the long run. Like it's better for the users in the long run to know that you have to make a bunch of complicated decisions to do load balancing properly. Like it feels
Well,
like,
so
yeah.
I was gonna say here's something that I think like the feedback anyway it's valuable. Like why I think that we should stick with the model. I think that we should probably start thinking after this, investigate I think passes and all of those things they passes. Maybe we should get the same folks that are working for all of those CLIs to start thinking on some better way to improve our user experience. We need a solution for that. I think it's like at least having some better way. Like I use the example as network policy. Like network policy, they've been always also neglected by users because the user experience of network policy it kind of sucks, right? So if you don't know that you need a default deny and then your default deny usually it does just default deny for ingress but not for egress, and then because it's historically it was this way, you don't have the users using that correctly. So I think that the feedback here is valuable in the sense that we need to think short term on how to get that better for users. Either some CLI, some better documentation, some mechanism that creates those things for them, some mutable ish or like some simplified gateway route where you tell people like, hey, you can use this as your ingress, but you are going to lose a lot of things here. You are hiding a lot of things for you on this API. And, it's up to your admin to allow you to use that. I'm not sure if it does make sense. Like it's just like a bunch of stupid ideas, but I think what I mean here is like there is available feedback here in Geek. Like it is like the majority of people using Kubernetes, users, developers, they don't want to care about those details anyway. So that's why they were using Ingress. So how can we make safe but easier by default? I think it's a question.
Yeah, this is, I feel like this is death by a thousand cuts. Every incremental decision we make does not make the API much worse or better. But, they kind of line up and just kind of stack on top of each other to be either really good or really awful, depending on the direction we're heading. I'm not saying this clearly fits in one of those. It's just if every decision we make is in isolation, we risk
No, I like,
the
yeah, I 100% agree that we need to be careful about thinking about where we're going each time we make a big decision like this. And 100% agree. And it is worthwhile to have this conversation. But like as I said, I have spent quite a lot of time thinking about it, and I have a huge thread on the issue where folks users of Cilium are asking for TCP route and UDP route, where I'm like, what are you using it for? Why do you need it? Why is it like, what are you looking for? What protocols are you looking for? Why do you need it like this? Do you care about source IP address? And like most of them are like, I need it for SSH or I need it for some other thing, and I need it to be on the same IP as the HTTP is because DNS, and I need it to be able to do these things, but I don't care about, I don't care about source NATing. I don't care about the source IP. For me, I think that people will be like, I don't care about the source IP until they have a security problem, and then they're going to be like, now I care about the source IP. But like, the, I think, and so like I'm just really worried that right now a lot of implementations have support for doing some sort of TCP or UDP forwarding that is not like, that's very different between implementations and that people are using anyway. And I think the to me the thing that Ingress has taught me is that people actually are willing to deal with a lot more complexity than they say they will, because like Ingress Nginx makes clear that people that don't mind complexity when it's in an annotation or something, as long as it's on the one object, right? That's actually a lot of complexity. It's just that it's complexity that people are used to. It's
Yeah.
decided to put that's moment.
No, that's fair. I think I will just, accept that this is something that we are going to do. I'm not thrilled, but I'm also not, I don't have a compelling alternative that's available in the same time frame.
Yeah.
And we can't stall on this forever. So, let's move on because there are a lot of other things that we should talk about in this
Yes, we
release.
should. Yeah.
So yeah. First up, second up, conformance binary and container image. That seems important and could meaningfully help with, if you're, I guess, yeah, it would meaningfully help with many things. But I'm curious, how do people like? Couldn't you just like we already just it's wrapped with Go test, right? And it doesn't really matter where you run it. It doesn't need to be in the same tree as your project in any
I
way.
think
Like, is it just an instruction thing?
I
Do
think it
we want
just
to
it
remove the dependency on Go altogether?
both. I think. Yeah, I think removing
Okay.
the dependency on Go is useful. That means that people, you don't need to run a Go environment to be able to run the conformance tests. It also makes it means that we can also uh like we can do we it's possible for us to put stuff in that binary to sign the conformance reports or something like that. So like if the binary is generated via a signed thing and that signed thing signs the conformance reports, then we can be like, gives the conformance reports a checksum or something. Then we can be sure that people haven't like generated the conformance report and then edited it by hand afterwards, which is a thing you could totally do today, right? Like, and so like that's one of the things that there's other stuff that we could do there if that becomes a problem. Like, we could require publishing the artifacts of your report to somewhere, as well as PRing it into the thing, that sort of stuff, right? Like, so, to me, like having a binary that is an artifact, like unlocks a whole bunch of stuff about that we can do about sort of managing the artifact versions and reproducible builds and stuff like that, and making things reproducible more easily.
I've been agreeing with you
Yeah.
this whole time, and
And
was
you and me.
muted. So, but I was definitely agreeing with you. Okay. Uh, so yeah, this seems useful. Um, Union features. This is Ricardo driving this one forward. What
Yeah.
is this
It's
more just adding more conformance tests basically, and like a definition?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's mostly trying to unblock people willing to use backend TLS policy on the way that it should, or other features that are considered union features. So yeah, I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
try to drive this one more on once
Yeah.
it's.
I'd summarize this as trying to make sure that when you combine two features, the result is predictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we still have a surprising wealth of features hiding in experimental that would be
Mm-hmm.
valuable to get to GA, in no particular order. Retries.
Mm-hmm.
That one feels very close. Session persistence, I'm less clear on this one, but I think there's been some. Ricardo, I think
Yep.
you were saying you were interested in helping push this one forward.
Uh,
I think Damien on our side might be. Um,
Session persistence.
yeah, did I?
Yeah, Grant is here,
Grant. Oh,
so I'm not
Grant.
sure if
Sorry. Yes,
he's
Grant.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure
Okay.
Yeah,
if he's unmuted.
yeah, I'm definitely interested in helping out. I just haven't gotten quite around to it, but I do plan to start looking at it hopefully this week to do some
Great.
reviews. We have
Great.
some
Okay.
progress on conformance reports that Saloni is helping me out with. So I
Cool.
think we're making
Okay.
some progress.
Nice. And then Nick, this
Yeah, I
one's
gotta
you.
I gotta push
Okay.
this forward. I have actually been I need to one of the things I need to do as part of that is to go and look at who has actually implemented the existing Xtorth. I'm a little concerned that I haven't seen a lot of uptake in the existing Xtorth. It's pretty complicated to use. And I think in the time since we agreed on it and actually built it, there's been more uptake in data planes supporting auth directly. So like lots of the implementations have their own way to just configure existing like OAuth or basic auth filters
Yeah.
on their data plane. And so like it may be that Xtorth is like, hey, we did this to sort of get everyone thinking about auth, but it turns out that it's better to just drop a basic auth filter and an OAuth 2 filter directly into HTTP route or something like that, right? Like
I don't know. I'm not against, basic auth, OAuth, whatever. I'm not against those filters, but I think XDoth is so useful in the sense it's like this catch-all of
so
like never down, these kind of extensibility points end up becoming this catch-all of usefulness.
absolutely.
Did Nick cut out for anyone else or just me?
He cut a bit.
Okay.
Becomes a catch-all of okay. So yeah, they become a catch-all of usefulness, but that's also a catch-all of why would I bother asking the upstream to build this when I can do it myself with the catch-all. So that's the thing that I'm worried about there. So
Yeah.
like
But you think like there's a really long tail of forms of auth out there, right? And some
for
are
sure.
pretty awful.
I'm not saying I won't move it forward, but I'm also saying like, hey, maybe it's worth having a conversation about like, is it also worth, because almost all of the use that I have seen people talk about with Xtorth is here's how you use it to do OAuth. It's like, well, maybe we just cut out the having to run an extra service to be able to do this, and because most of the data planes do OAuth anyway, maybe that's also another thing that's worth thinking about. And it's an extended feature anyway, right? Like we only need a few data planes to be able to do it to make it pretty worthwhile. So I'm going to think about that. But yes, I agree that driving Xtorth forward is important anyway, regardless.
Cool. Default gateways, Lior, yeah, that seems I wish Flynn were around because I think this is really Flynn's idea.
It is Flynn's idea. I think I was a bit reluctant about it to start with, but like I have come around to the idea that I think default gateways are going to go a long way to addressing the why is this so complicated problem.
Yeah, I would like to I would like to hear from people at KubeCon. Sadly, I won't be at this KubeCon, but I'd like to hear from folks, if this is a useful pattern for them.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is, one of the last meetings where I brought it up, we got like nearly zero interest. I guess Flynn wasn't there as well. So I just want to make sure it just doesn't hang in experimental if there is actually.
Yeah, no, I mean,
if we believe it's useful, so.
Back in the day, we did set an expiration date for net new things to experimental, and I think default gateways may fall into that. So we should either move it or get rid of it. And I think given those two choices, I would rather move it forward.
Right. But like we need to figure out what implementations are actually willing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm already moving out.
So like no implementation done because we haven't actually. It's still provisional, right? Like no implementation done anything about it because it's not at a point where you can actually do anything about it yet.
Your audio is pretty bad.
It's not experimental, is it? Fully experimental.
I mean, anything you said, Nick. I think.
No, I think I got the last bit. It's still provisional. It needs to be experimental to really get usage. That seems fair.
What's blocking it from being experimental?
No one's done the work to make the types.
Yeah.
I mean, I can turn around the work to make the types today, if this is
Like,
the only thing that blocks it.
yeah. So what we need is someone to just go through the gap to see if there's outstanding questions that need to be answered for it to be able to move to experimental. To do the to sort of we need to first, okay, the process is we need to move it to implementable, which is the gap gets updated with what the types will be. We agree on what the thing will look like, how it will work, try and hash out like what the conformance test will look like, that sort of stuff. And then to move the gap to experimental, then someone needs to implement the types. So that's the two steps. We need to move from provisional to implementable. And to move to implementable, that means that the types are documented in the gap, and what we want to do is documented in the gap. And then the move from implementable to experimental is that we actually do the implementation, and the types are in the experimental channel.
Yep. Okay. No, that sounds great to me. Leo, if you got cycles to help with this, I would love to see this move. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, for net new things, egress. How exciting. This is well, I added it, but it's actually something coming from the AI Gateway Working Group. They have been trying to drive egress forward, and Keith has a PR that's been open for a few weeks that he's been asking a variety of us to review, and I've kept on saying after the release, and the release has come out, so I need to review it. I have no excuse left anymore. But yeah, this feels like it's going to be part of a discussion, and we need to figure out how we want to approach this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have that one on my list as well. I think me and Grant, we have that on our list of needs.
And then XProc, this is one, in the inference extension. It got reasonable amount of traction, just a subset defined there of just callouts for endpoint picking in that case. But it did get me thinking, I think extensibility is a huge part of this API, or a huge potential value for this API. So I wanted to at least, start throwing some feelers out there for how much interest there was in this kind of more generic form of extensibility. Have obviously not gotten far yet, but just throwing it out on the radar for next release. Lior?
Yeah, I'll just add a little more context. I mean, maybe someone from this group is actually interested, but the other proposal from AI Gateway Working Group was the payload processors, which more or less are
That's XProc.
Sorry?
Yeah.
That's a special case of XProc.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, like, it's very related, and I'm not saying it's the same thing, but it's very related thing, and XProc is being discussed at the center of it. We do have some people within this group who are actually interested in doing some POC. In fact, one of them just pinged me today from Palo Alto Network. I just wonder if someone in this group has any opinions that I can also help represent as part of the POC. Otherwise, we can just be more of a passive and see what are the outcomes and kind of wait.
So I've been participating on the AI working group as well, the other one. And one thing that I told Morgan, and Keith was there as well, and other folks, it's that I would like to have a definition of an XProc from the gRPC project from CNCF or something like that, instead of having a one-off definition where it works for Envoy and it doesn't work for other proxies. I think we kind of miss some protocol definition here. And I think it's kind of it kind of hurts the ecosystem if we do something that just works for. I mean, I have reasons to have that working, for my work, but putting my community hat, I think this definition should come and should be defined by CNCF, as we've been doing here with the API. Even being an RPC, some well-defined proto buffer or some protocol or something like that.
To clarify,
I agree. I think so. We had more success than I actually initially expected or hoped for with inference, but part of that was driven by us defining a small subset of XProc as the protocol required for that. And we have at least 3 different data planes that support that, obviously including Envoy. But Nginx went out of their way to make it work as well. And so I would like to try and find a way to do that. Either we define it in Gateway and it's a subset of XProc, or we define it just in some kind of, like, I think there's an XDS repo under CNCF. I don't know if that's the right place. I don't know what the repo is that hosts it if it's not Gateway. I remember a similar thing for XDoth, like Nick's thing. The XDoth spec was not really well written anywhere, and so Flynn threw out a PR to put it in Gateway API. And I don't know what happened.
That
to
PR staled
actually.
out. That PR staled out.
Okay.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is, for these kind of extensibility protocols, we need to decide as a community, is Gateway the right home? I don't know what the alternative is right now, but I'm open to finding an alternative.
I'm not sure if I'm like, just a clarifying question. So like, are you both or just you, Rob, suggest that we have our own protocol? Like
No, what
Someone's
I'm
got to write
suggesting
down the
is that
protocol. Like,
the protocol is not well defined anywhere. In both XDoth and XProc, you can dig through some source code for Envoy, for example, and like, oh, okay, I guess this is how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And XDoth has more implementations, or at least historically had more implementations, but I think they were largely digging through source code. I don't know. Flynn's definition is pretty good, but I think we just need to find a neutral home to host that. Gateway is relatively neutral. It could be there, or we could. I don't know where else it would go, but yeah.
I think doing on Gateway just I mean, to be honest, it would be a bit controversial in my opinion, mostly because we are defining an API for user consumption and not for the backend's consumption. So we are defining something that the implementations they should be doing. But I think that the XDS definition, like the XProc and the XAlpha, and that's why I was considering putting that on CNCF, because this is more like a neutral place where not just Kubernetes projects, but any project that wants to implement an XAlt or an XProc, they could go and say like, hey, I implement this thing that is defined by CNCF, So that's why I don't like, honestly, I don't like that much the bureaucracy of that, but I don't want to be on place where I get multiple vendors. No offense for anyone, but like F5 and HAProxy and Palo Alto Networks and all of them fighting because the definition that you put for something that how their backend will be doing calls to define their behavior, it's working or not. So like how they will be defining their code to call some XProc or some XAlt. So that's what I am just concerned here. It's more like
one of
the attributions.
One benefit of having it in Gateway, and I'm not saying Gateway is a great home, but what we learned with inference is we wrote conformance tests. And so what that meant is when Nginx came along and they wanted to say, hey, does my thing meet the spec? They ran the test passed, they were done. I'm looking at CNCF XDS as like a home for stuff like this. It, doesn't have to be here. But somewhere under CNCF also works. It just feels like, you can write a spec 1,000 times, but without conformance tests, it's, whatever, right?
I mean, so we can have the own repo for that. I wouldn't just try to not pollute the Gateway API one with that one if we can. It's like protobuffer definition.
I think it's more useful for somebody to own the definition and to have a definition written down somewhere, especially if that definition has some conformance tests, and for that to have a home, like if that home moves later, like that's okay, but like it's better to have it all written down somewhere first,
Yeah.
and then if we end up in arguments about like exactly who owns it and how it all gets implemented, then that's a problem to solve later. But at least then we've got some place for implementation to start from. I agree that putting it in the Gateway API repo as it stands is probably not a good idea, but having like another Kubernetes SIGs repo that we own for now, as a place to define some of these things, is like at least somewhere where we can stash that stuff, and then we can move it later if we need to. But like it's better to have a place to put it that we then retire later when we don't need it anymore than to not have it written down.
Can we take the action item then, if we decide that we want to do that, to send an email to dev saying like, hey, we identified this problem as being something that will be problematic for AI, Gateway API, and all of that. And we are proposing to create that under Gateway API and just ask if people they have concerns. Because I think it's in my opinion, it's like a huge responsibility that we are taking for us. It's fine, but we need, everybody around to all of the projects that are doing something similar to say like, okay, we are fine with you doing that. My only concern is that like we don't start doing something that, as opposed to Gateway API, people they are just gonna say like Envoy folks, they are just gonna say like, yeah, you know what, we don't care about that. Like we have our own Next Alpha and our own XProc, and we are never going to implement that. And then other implementations they're gonna say like, hey, this is too hard for us. We have our own proprietary whatever, and you should just have done that as implementation specific. So that's my only concern. I like the idea of having some definition for that. I would love to be able to write any kind of filter for any kind of backend on a well-defined way, to be honest. It's like a dream that I had since Nginx. But I would just be careful. Again, as we were with Gateway API, I would just be really careful on passing the right message to folks. Like, hey, we are doing that as a Gateway API because we need a Gateway API, but it may end up being out of the scope of Gateway API, of people saying like, hey, I support this new standard defined by Kubernetes for filters.
The more I think about it, I don't know where else it could, like, if we say we need conformance tests for this thing, which I think we do, I don't know how you write conformance tests without a Kubernetes API as the input, because anyway, this is a rabbit hole. We're past time, so I don't want to.
We are past time. I got a hard stop. I got to get going. So, well, in 2 weeks I will actually be in Europe. So,
all right.
Yeah, so I probably won't make the meeting in 2 weeks unusually at this time. So I'll already be in Europe at that time. But hopefully next week I can join the EU meeting at a more sane time.
Yeah, awesome. I think, Nick, if you need to drop, I would just like to raise like, Lior raised having some break room or something like that, even if we are having a GADS. Dan Winship asked me today if we're going to have that as well, but he didn't answer me why he want to know that. Like I asked him like, hey, are you looking for something? But eventually I think that this kind of discussion, at least like this XProc and this XAlf, if we decide to move forward with that, or other things, we'll probably need to have that out of eGADS. I don't think we're going to have enough time for that. And I think that a lot of folks that are not going to be able to be on eGADS because of the scope of that, they are willing to discuss that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I think I'm okay to see us do some meetings, but I think we really need to put a hard cap on the number of sessions because I cannot do another like 15 hours of Gateway API meetings in the week of KubeCon. You were going to see, like, if that happens again, I cannot guarantee that you won't see severely cranky Nick by the end of it. And you already see that last time.
How AI solved all of my problems. I can do that vendor pitch for you on the break room as well.
I mean, that's a very fast way to speedrun getting to very cranky Nick. So,
okay,
awesome. Cool. All right, well, thanks, folks.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Alex. I'm gonna go. I'll talk to you later. Bye.